Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's no one in this country who isn't fed up and furious when we hear that another monster has used a gun to take an innocent life. And there isn't a person in this country who isn't heartbroken when they learn about another suicide. Every life is a gift from God, and every innocent life that is lost is unique and a tragedy. I can tell you in Texas, we have seen far too many mass murders at the hands of deranged and sick individuals. I was in Santa Fe the morning of that shooting. Santa Fe High School is less than an hour away from my house. I was in El Paso at the Walmart after another mass murder. I was in Midland, Odessa after yet another. I was in Dallas, where 5 police officers were murdered by a deranged radical. And I was in Sutherland Springs, in that beautiful sanctuary where a monster murdered innocent women and children. I care deeply about stopping violent crime, and gun crime in particular. I've spent much of my adult life in law enforcement, trying to stop violent criminals who prey upon the innocent, and working to ensure that they receive the most stringent punishment. But one thing is abundantly clear. If the objective is to stop violent crime, restricting the rights of law-abiding citizens doesn't work. In fact, it typically makes crime worse, because when you disarm law-abiding citizens, you make them more likely to be victims. 2 years ago, when we had a hearing on red flag laws in the full committee, I said at the time that those laws could potentially be part of the solution set at the state level. And I still believe that. The states are laboratories of democracy. They are the proper place to debate the substance of red flag laws. We shouldn't be imposing a federal standard or putting the federal government's very heavy thumb on the scale with coercive grant programs, especially when 19 states and the District of Columbia are already experimenting with these laws. But I also said, and continue to believe, that even at the state level, laws must be narrowly targeted to those who pose an extreme risk while simultaneously giving full force to the fundamental rights of all law-abiding Americans. Many of the state laws that have been implemented fall short of this standard in one or more ways, and none of the Democrats' current proposals come close to meeting it. Rather than taking a measured and respectful approach, radical gun control advocates see red flag laws as a way to open the door to comprehensive gun control. One of the drafters of Connecticut's red flag law, which we heard about earlier, the first in the country, admitted this last week on CNN, stating that these laws only work as part of comprehensive gun control legislation. The fact is, Democrats don't want Americans to own guns. In August 2019, a television interviewer asked then-candidate Joe Biden the following question. So to gun owners out there who say, well, a Biden administration means they're going to come for my guns. Biden's response? Bingo. They're not hiding it. So it's no surprise that this administration and that Democrats in Congress and anti-gun groups are all pushing red flag laws that will take guns from law-abiding Americans. In Connecticut, for example, 32% of confiscation orders are overturned when a judge finally hears both sides of the story. And this is after the government has already seized the firearm. This means that 1 out of every 3 people who has his or her firearm seized by the government under Connecticut's red flag law is an innocent, law-abiding citizen. That is an unacceptable rate of protecting constitutional rights. One reason that the error rate is so high is that most of these laws don't even purport to satisfy due process. Every red flag law currently in operation permits the government to order the confiscation of firearms without notice to the individual, and a hearing only to follow at some later time. Ex parte hearings may be necessary in some extreme cases, but they shouldn't be the default standard. Moreover, in many states, the word of a spurned romantic partner or disgruntled coworker is sufficient to meet the watered-down standard for unilateral, albeit temporary, deprivation of Second Amendment rights. Put simply, red flag laws empower the government to take firearms first and ask questions later, often much, much later. No one would tolerate these procedures to deprive Americans of any of their other fundamental constitutional rights. But Democrats don't care that law-abiding Americans lose their rights under these laws because they don't believe in the Second Amendment and the right to self-defense. In a shockingly candid statement, President Biden's nominee to lead the ATF told one of the witnesses testifying today that it didn't matter if a law-abiding citizen lost their rights due to red flag laws because the disarmed victims can just purchase a replica gun to scare criminals away. That is an answer that reveals a contempt for the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. And it's dangerous. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. It's not about recreational shooting. It is about the fundamental right to protect our lives, to protect our homes, to protect our families. It's about the right we have if somebody comes into our home at night seeking to harm our children, to defend our children, and to defend our lives. The red flag laws being pushed by Democrats and gun control activists are designed to deprive Americans of that fundamental right. And for what? As one of today's witnesses wrote in 2020 after reviewing all of the available literature, quote, no research has found any statistical reduction in crime, including mass shooting fatalities, from confiscation laws, and studies about suicide reduction show mixed results. That's what the data show. We need to act, and we need to act forcefully to stop gun crimes. And I have introduced legislation and fought for legislation to do that. But federal red flag laws, I don't believe, are the answer. We don't need to impose Connecticut's dismissive approach to Second Amendment rights on the entire country.